Whiskey is getting expensive. You need to know how to get your money's worth out of it, and that's what we're going to talk about right here today on Drinking with Craig and Roger. Welcome back. I'm Craig.
I'm Roger.
So, right now, if you're newer to whiskey, all the things that are getting the attention, I think, everywhere and have so much noise going out are all the exclusive, limited, high-end bottlings in all kinds of different casks from all these different distilleries, whether you're into Scotch or bourbon. And it can be hard to sort through, for sure. And one thing is for sure, when you're chasing unicorns and all these cask strength, high age statement things, let's face it, you're not going to get a ton of value for your money, especially if you buy it from a secondary market or online or something like that. So I think one thing that would be good is for people that are newer to it to know what should they look for if they really want to get a good bang for their buck.
Okay.
He's the man for the job.
First of all, let me say that there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying wine, whiskey, or beer on the lower end of the price range.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's also nothing wrong with buying wine or whiskey at hundreds or thousands of dollars a bottle and drinking it if you enjoy it.
And can afford it.
But if you're like a lot of folks, what you're looking for is a very nice drink at a pretty good price. In other words, something that gives you a good value. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to talk about today. What sort of things should you look at for a bottle of whiskey that you have never tasted that will give you a pretty good idea of whether you're going to get a good value or not?
Yeah.
Now, some things to keep in mind is that all whiskey starts out as a beer, which is called a wort, which is made from grains. And it's distilled to about 120 to 150 proof. Mm-hmm. When it's bottled, they add water to it, hopefully from the same place that they got the beer from, and they bring it down to whatever proof they're going to bring it down to. 80 is the minimum. You can do it, still call it whiskey. But what that means is the flavor characteristics of the grain are diluted, and so they're much softer and quieter. And so what you should be looking for is a proof that's better than 80, like 86
that's
or
the legal
90.
minimum. The legal minimum is 80.
Yeah, but 86, 90 proof will give you much more taste for your money, all other things being equal.
Mm-hmm. Whether you're talking about bourbon or Scotch.
Or Scotch, just whiskey.
Irish whiskey in general.
In general, yes. Mm-hmm. Now, the next thing is what it's stored in. For centuries, people have stored all sorts of stuff in oak barrels. Mm-hmm. They discovered very early on that if you put your beer in a barrel that previously held pickles, the beer tasted like pickles, so they stopped doing that. So what you find is, generally barrels that held beers are used, if they're reused, they're used for beer. Mm. Barrels that held whiskey, they're reused for whiskey. Mm. Anyway, they also discovered that if you didn't drink it right away, it got to be a better drink. It was not quite so bold and brash, and it was nicer.
Yeah.
So that's something to look for, how the whiskey has been aged. Now, some thoughts about that. If it's in a warm climate like Kentucky or India, it doesn't take as long to reach a good maturity as it does if it's in a cold climate like Scotland or Scandinavia.
Yeah.
So the general rule of thumb is that the sweet spot for Scotch whiskey or cold whiskeys is around 10 to 12 years. And the same sort of thing, but 4 to 8 years in a warmer climate.
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you go beyond that, okay, the whiskey continues to mature. It gets milder and milder and milder. It also gets more expensive because you pay tax on the whiskey in the barrel every single year, and it evaporates, so there's less whiskey in the barrel
Yes.
every single year. So, while, a 25-year-old whiskey might be a very nice drink, it's going to cost a heck of a lot more than a 12-year-old whiskey, or
a lot more.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we want to keep in mind. So the first Scotch whiskey that sort of meets our criterion is Loch Lomond.
All right. Yes, we talked about this one recently and reviewed it. Great stuff for the money.
Yes, it's 92 proof.
Yep.
And it's 12 years old, so it's in that sweet spot, and it's got some body to it. It hasn't been diluted so much.
Definitely one more plus I want to point out. This one also says it's non-chill filtered, which is a great sign. The chill filtering can remove some more minor flavor components, and it's a good thing to look for on your Scotch label.
Right. So let us sample it again.
Sure. Let's give it another whack.
Ah, it smells great.
It does smell great. Oh yeah.
Oh, very nice. It's so malty.
Oh, it is. There's a lot going on.
Not a lot of smoke, but it's
No.
a very, very, very nice
A
drink.
lot of people don't want smoke, and that's fine. But like for this same thing down at 80 proof, especially with no age statement, that could easily be the same price of around $40. Like this version, this is going to destroy it.
Yeah, I've
every time.
actually paid more than $100 for some Spirit of Scotland whiskeys, which were 80 proof.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
because that's all you could.
Well, yeah, that's a merchant bottling. It's not from the distillery.
Yeah, the independent bottlings. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
But
well, anyway, we don't want to go into that. But that's that. Well, wait a minute. Here's another whiskey.
okay.
Now, I told you, that they get more expensive the longer you leave them in the barrel.
Yeah.
Okay, here's Glendronach. It's 15 years old, and it's 92 proof.
Same thing. Yeah,
Same
non-chill
thing.
filtered. Same.
Same thing.
3 more years.
It costs about twice as much as the
Yeah,
Loch Lomond.
more than twice as much. And now Glendronach does make a 12-year-old that is still more expensive than the Loch Lomond. And I would not say it's a bad value by any means.
Oh, no, this is not hundreds or thousands of dollars.
For a 15-year whiskey, I think the MSRP on this in the United States is around $90, something like that, roughly around there. This is still pretty good value. I'll say, yeah, it is a pretty good value because the prices go up exponentially with any amount of age. But I also really like Glendronach.
Oh, so do I.
Let's see what do I detect it's a little different. Besides being a different whiskey altogether. Well,
Still got the same malty smell.
maltiness is definitely there. I'm definitely getting significantly more of the sherry barrels that these are in. You're getting a much stronger sherry presence.
Yeah, well, it's
Again, the quality of the barrel starts coming through more with more age.
sherry
So-
barrels and bourbon barrels improve the whiskey. Pickle barrels don't.
Where did these pickle barrels come from? Okay, this is significantly, I would say, a little more restrained and mellowed compared to the Loch Lomond.
Yeah, it's definitely more subdued to my taste.
More subdued, but it's still a big flavor, but it's a more gentle and almost subtle flavor.
Yeah, and there's a very, very nice finish to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is really good stuff. This is a nice bottle, for sure. But it does highlight how once you start adding age, then the expense goes up a lot.
A lot.
And you don't, 10 to 12-year-old scotches can be awesome.
Well, so far, we've been talking about malt scotches, single malt scotches. But, most of the Scotch whiskey in the world is blended. Now, if you look at a blend, you're unlikely to see an age statement. If you do, such as in Johnnie Walker Black Label, okay, it says it's 12 years old. That means that every single drop of whiskey in that bottle has been in a barrel aging at least 12 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
Okay. And, the grain whiskey, which is distilled to about 150 proof, ages a lot faster. The lighter whiskeys age faster than the heavier ones. And so that lighter whiskey has been at its sweet spot much longer. So that's one of the reasons why when you see something like Johnnie Walker Red or Famous Grouse, you don't see an age statement, because they can save a little bit of money by not letting the light grain whiskey age so long. Like 6 years, fine. But that doesn't mean that everything in that bottle is 6 years. A lot of the malt whiskey will be 8 to 12 years. Anyway, that's just another case. So when you're looking at it, just remember that. Now, let us move a little closer to home to American whiskeys. You're looking for the same things. Remember, something that's a higher proof than 80 if you can get it at a good price, and something that's maybe 6 to 8 years old. Okay. Here is a Tennessee whiskey, George Dickel.
Yep.
It's number 12. But it's not 12 years
No,
old. That's just what they're calling it. And if you don't look at it too closely, you think it might. But there's no year attached to that 12. However, it is 90 proof. So if you're comparing this to another whiskey that would be 80 proof, this one would be a better value if it's around the same price. It would have more taste to it. It's a nice whiskey. We're not going to taste this one today.
Yeah.
Okay. What we are going to taste is George Dickel Bourbon,
I've not
which
had this one
is
before.
8 years old. And it is 90 proof as well.
Okay.
So this one, which is $30 to $35 a bottle, is a good price for a pretty nice whiskey that fits our criteria.
Yeah. I've heard pretty good things about it, so looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, cheers. Yep. Smells like a bourbon.
Smells like a bourbon, and also still smells like George Dickel.
Yeah.
Similar enough to their Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah. Well, remember, Tennessee whiskey could be called a bourbon if they didn't want to keep their state identity.
Yeah. Pretty nice. Pretty nice stuff.
That doesn't need any more aging. This is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine whiskey. And it's nice.
It really
Smooth.
does taste of other bourbons that have a similar flavor that I've had recently. It really feels like it's had the edges rounded off on it. It's a nice, smooth drink with lots of flavor for sure. And I'm definitely detecting the slightly higher alcohol, which is great.
But it wasn't so long ago that the bourbon might be 7, 8 years old, and they wouldn't tell you it was that old. They just say it was ancient age or something like that.
Right.
All right. Well, that's the thing with American whiskeys. You're probably not going to find very many that have an age statement, and if you do, they may be $150 or more for a bottle.
Could be.
So there is another criteria that you can use that will let you know that it's at least aged well enough to be a good drink.
Yeah.
And that is if you can find a whiskey which says bottled in bond.
Those are beautiful words.
This is Rittenhouse. We've had some of that before. It's bottled in bond. When it says bottled in bond, that means it is at least 4 years old.
And the government is certifying it.
Yeah, it's a government regulation that when it says bottled in bond, it's like if it says 100 proof, but not bottled in bond, it may not be at least 4 years old.
That's right.
Anyway, this one we've had before. It's a good.
That is a really good rye.
And then here's Jack Daniel's.
Yeah.
Bottled in bond. This got a rating of 97 points in Whiskey Advocate.
Pretty
and
impressive.
It's about $35 a bottle, and it is a terrific drink.
It's very good. It's
Anyway,
very good.
So that's what we're talking about. When you're looking for whiskey, if you're looking for a good whiskey at a good price, look for something that's around 12 years old. If it's a Scotch and bottled in bond, or 6 years or something like that.
6 to 8 years, something like that.
For
Bourbon.
American whiskey, whether it's bourbon or rye, and I think you'll be very well pleased.
And I have to say, things to look through. What has caused the price of whiskey to go up so much is obviously demand. Demand is far exceeding supply. And because of that, and then the pandemic and inflation and other things, whiskey's come to be seen as almost an investment, and people are starting to become used to spending big money on whiskey, and it's driving the whole market up for the most part.
But don't invest your money in the whiskeys we've been showing you today if you think they're going to go up to $4,000 or $5,000 a bottle, because they're not.
No.
They're a good value.
Yeah.
They're good whiskey. They're a good drink. And I'm not going to invest in whiskey any more than I would in cryptocurrency.
All right, so that's a nice little intro for you. And if you like what we're doing, please give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if there's anything else you want to see us do, or if you have any other comments on good value whiskey, what you look for, what some of your favorites are, put them down there in the comments. We'd love to talk to you about it. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.